Hold on to your hats, folks. We're back for the third and final part in this emotional podcast. This story has really touched my heart, and I just can't wait to get back into the conversation with Haydn Tear, where we continue to hear about his incredible, inspiring story. So let's get back into it. Something that interested me there that you were saying, that it changed the way that you viewed yourself. Tell us a little bit more about that. How did you view yourself before and versus now at that? What was that change?
Yeah, I think potentially a little bit of not self-worth, but the self-confidence in my own self from the injury. Probably had a bit of a tough time with that, I would say self-worth, and who I really was as a person was probably missing a little bit. And it was funny, this person actually reached out to me a good couple of months before I actually decided, I'm gonna actually speak to him and listen to what he has to say. And at that point, I didn't have too much structure in my life. I'd neglected my own physical health quite a bit. So I was putting a lot of time and effort into being in primary schools, teaching children, and giving a lot of my energy to that. And all of a sudden I found myself slipping away from looking after myself. And, I'd always been very active, but I wasn't playing football anymore. I wasn't going to the gym very regularly. And at that point, I decided something needs to change, for me to start feeling and showing up as a person I know I can become. I just needed that help and that support. And at that point, having someone there to hold you accountable, having someone there who's in your corner, who's giving you that structure and that routine, and is almost laying things out clearly for you, that's what I really needed. And all of a sudden, just by doing the thing, just by showing up on a day-to-day basis, just by doing and getting to the gym, you start feeling better about yourself. You start loving the person you're becoming a little bit more. And at that point, my life started changing around to the point where I was really now inspired to help people almost do what I did, where they were stuck in the rut. They didn't quite feel their best self. On a day-to-day basis, they weren't giving the time and energy to their self that they deserve. And obviously I went through similar struggles at that point. So yeah, that sort of led me into, like I say, that the coaching route to what I'm doing now.
I love that, I'm sure your experiences, the discipline that you had to adopt as a footballer, and, the difficulties that you went through, I'm sure it makes you a really good coach, because you've got that, at such a young age, you've got a massive amount of personal experience, really. You know what it's like to be stuck in a rut. The hardest thing is to get started, isn't it? And start going to the gym and when you don't feel good about yourself, you often don't do things that are healthy for you, because to varying degrees, it can be just a little bit of low self-esteem, but to the extreme of people don't feel that they deserve it, or they're not worth it, or, they've got no hope for themselves, that, and all that kind of thing. So the fact that you've been through different stages and different versions of that, I'm sure it makes you quite a good coach, actually. You know what that's like, and know how to motivate people. So I'm wondering how your experiences, how they do help you when you're working with people.
Yeah, I think something I'm quite big on now, and I'm looking into a little bit more, is that shift in identity. And the person you are right now, the way you look, the way you feel, the way you sort of show up to others, that is a representation of your past self. So your identity of who you want to become and how you want to look and how you want to feel, you're only going to achieve that by doing the daily actions which are going to get you there. So in 6 months' time, the identity you have will be a result of the person you are right now. And, for, let's say in the gym side of things, you know, you and everybody else in the class in the morning, it's not easy to get up at 5:15, 5:30 in the morning to get yourself to the gym for 6 o'clock. But it's that identity. Like, you're now, without fail, every single 6 a.m. class, you're there because it almost becomes part of your life because you do it on a weekly basis, you know, and you've become that person because of what you are doing every single day. You know, you can't change who you are if the actions don't change. So I think me going through that personally of, you know, having to pull myself out of a bit of a rut, and the only way I think you get out of sort of self-doubt is by actually doing the thing. Like, that confidence level doesn't just magically appear. You've got to do the thing. So for me as a coach, you know, I'd say still a fairly new coach in the industry, just been coaching now just over a year. You know, my bit of self-doubt at the start, whether, you know, am I a good coach? Can I help people? Was pretty limited at the start. But, you know, after actually doing the thing and after the coaching hours I've spent and after helping people, I become more confident. That self-doubt goes. And again, it's that shift in identity from now. I like to think that I'm a pretty confident coach. I've got a wealth of knowledge. I can help people. You know, I'll give you an example that one of my current clients, we've worked quite a lot on self-identity and who you want to become and what your future wants to look like. And she's actually recently just quit her job because she knew the person she wanted to become in the future, what she didn't want to be in that job. She was just in that job for the sake of being in that job. You know, for her to create a better future for herself and for her to feel better about herself, she's had to take that leap. And for me, there's nothing more fulfilling than, you know, helping someone not just change how they look, but change their identity and change who they are going to become and who they want to become as well. So yeah, I think me going through that myself has massively helped with helping clients do that as well.
I think that's so true, you know, that you're gathering evidence for yourself when you're doing those daily practices that, you know, and I can really remember a switch, and it was a clear switch in me. Because when I was first going to the gym, people were going to be saying, you'll start to enjoy it after a few weeks. No, it took me a lot longer than that. And I was a person that was my identity at that point was I'm a person that's trying to go to the gym, that's trying to be more healthy. And then I don't know what it was, but it was like a psychological switch. And I said, this is who I am now. I'm a person that goes to the gym. It was very different. It was such a subtle thing, and I don't know where it came from. It was like a divine intervention of some description where, um, this is who I am now. It was literally that they're the words that kind of came to me. And, it's absolutely it's been a contributing factor as to me starting this podcast and leaving my full-time job. I worked in the NHS, you know, arguably quite a secure job. Um, and going to the gym has been a factor in that. I've been working on myself psychologically for a while since I started studying psychology and becoming a psychotherapist. Um, but going to the gym has definitely been a factor in that. And I think you're right that people who are in a rut, they don't have that identity, but really, just by doing the thing, you can say, "This is me now," you know, "This is what" you can do that. It's the most difficult step, but I think that that's really a really great way of saying it actually, you know, and your experiences have shown you that,
Mm.
for sure.
Yeah, I like what you said about the giving yourself evidence that you are the person you want to become. So for yourself, you know, the person who you wanted to become at the start was the person you are now in terms of by showing up and showing yourself that you can get to these early mornings, you've got the discipline to get to these early mornings, it becomes who you are, and having that evidence that, you are capable of doing the thing, that just completely changes your mindset, because you go from a person who thinks, am I really that person, to having a bank of evidence, and it says to you, it shows you that, you are that person now. You are the person who, like you said, loves the gym. You're the person who is always there, helping others as well, pushing yourself in the gym, because you've got that bank of evidence. And, I think, like I said, it's a lot more than just a physical change. It's a mindset change and a psychological change as well, from just being the person you want to become, and living how that person lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comparing ourselves to others, that's something that I really avoided. I think that it can be a barrier, people turning up to the gym, comparing themselves to others. It can just be so disheartening. And, so consistency, just turning up. I've said this before on the podcast, that it's about, I've learned to be kinder to myself as well. I have a tendency to overwork and do things at 100%. I've learned a more healthy balance, I think, with things as well, that especially in the beginning, it was just, I'm just going to turn up. And if I'm struggling, I can just pull back a little bit for that day, but I'm going to go and do what I can do. And I think that you can give yourself permission to do that if you're not comparing yourself to others. You can just go and do, push yourself a little bit if you can. And that's literally my motto, just keep turning up. Um, yeah, yeah. And you're great. You bring a great energy in the mornings at stupid o'clock, It's for me, it's the only time to do it. It sets you up for the day. It helps me with my clarity of thought, and just motivation, everything. And then, you've got more motivation to eat more healthily and all the rest of it. So it's all a knock-on effect. We talk about the 6 pillars of living medicine on this podcast, and all of those work together to make it more sustainable, really. Each one helps the other. So, brilliant, fabulous. So, what does resilience mean to you, and how do you practice it daily?
I think it's probably similar to what we've just discussed. I think it's doing the things you don't always want to do. Showing yourself that even when you don't feel like it, you can still do it. Because again, it's that bank of evidence that you are this person. So something that I can remember, it was when I was quite young, probably like 10 or 11 years old. We went to Liverpool Football Club, and there was a grassy area, and one of our coaches was like, if you cut this grass here, you will cut corners in life. And that sort of stuck with me, in terms of, if one day you don't feel like getting up in the morning to get to the gym, or you don't feel like making that really healthy meal, or you don't feel like giving yourself enough time, like, it's almost cutting a corner. So do the things that, it's not going to always be easy. If you're always doing the easy thing, you're never going to grow. You're going to struggle to sort of develop as a person. So being resilient, doing the things that, you don't always want to do, that is going to make you a stronger person. So I think on a day-to-day basis, even in gym sessions, when you're struggling and you're going into a bench press set, for example, and you're in your own head thinking, oh, can I get to 10 reps? Can I get to 12 reps? And that's resilience, because, you're showing yourself, and you're in that mental battle with yourself, and overcoming that, and really pushing. And again, once you do it, it's more evidence to suggest that you are more than capable. And, just by, like I said, doing the thing, you build resilience. Do the hard things, and life will become easier from it.
Absolutely. And another little thing that helped me as well, that I calculated it, that we're awake about 110 hours a week. And I thought, well, if I go to the gym 4 times a week, then that's 4 hours. I've got 106 hours I can manage 4. Come on, I can manage 4. So so that so that helped me as well, really. It's about this impacts, how we enjoy life, how we experience life. That if we can find these little psychological tricks, they impact how we interact in relationships, because if we can feel better about ourselves and find we start to want more for ourselves. We start to expect more for ourselves in relationships, in our career. We just start to get more clarity on what we want, and, you know, we become less focused on others all the time. I think we can do that too much, where to the detriment of ourselves, where we don't focus on our hopes and dreams, our goals. We get distracted with social media and comparing with others and doing for others, trying to keep others happy and all that kind of thing. I think that with the gym and nutrition as well, and all the 6 pillars really, we start to build a stronger sense of self, and then everything else kind of, that's the foundation, and everything else kind of grows out of that. So moments of doubt when you stepped into this new career, but I'm hearing there that you were able to talk yourself around and sort of gather that evidence, like you say, just keep going, just keep learning, and all the rest of it. What would be the best piece of advice that you'd give someone facing a major setback? Just a brief interruption here. I just want to ask, if you're enjoying the show, then let's keep the conversation going. If these podcasts are resonating with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop me a follow, leave a comment, or write a quick review. It helps keep the podcast thriving and invites even more amazing guests to join us. And if you'd like to support the show in an extra special way, you can buy me a coffee using the link in the show notes. Every little bit helps keep this journey alive. Now back to the episode. Let's dive in.
I'd say to break it down, depending on what sort of setback it is. So for me, obviously going through that injury, I had to break it down, because when you look at, for me, what it was, 15, 16 months, if I look at that, I'm like, oh my word, that's a long period of time. It's a long journey. Similar with a transformation in the gym, it's not going to happen overnight. It could take you a year, 2 years. But if you view it as that, that's when it starts becoming quite overwhelming. So for me, like I wrote down here, you've got to set goals. You've got to break it down and say, right, in the next 3 months, this is what's going to happen. This is how I'm going to structure it. And this is the outcome of the next 3 months. And then it's a case, right, let's assess where we are. What can we set for the next 3 months? So you break your journey down into smaller chunks, and what I'd always say is, for me, when I broke my leg, I had help. I had support from physiotherapists. When I felt in a rut, I hired my own coach to help me out. I think if you're ever in a place where you are really struggling yourself and, you don't have that structure, you haven't quite got that accountability, get yourself in an environment which will help you with that, or have a support network which is going to help you with that. So if for yourself, for example, you're in every single day when you're coming to train, you're in an environment where everybody is working towards the same goal. Everybody is pushing themselves. You form friendships, you form relationships with people. And, I'm quite a big believer in environment will dictate a lot. So if you can break your journey down, if you can be surrounded in an environment where, people are going to be supporting you, people are going to be holding you accountable, I think that's the best place to be, because you can go it alone. You can try and push through alone, but I think deep down, if you have that help, you have that environment there for you, it makes everything 10 times easier, 100%.
It does, and it's about finding enjoyment as well, that you're much more likely to sustain it, so and that's why I keep going to the classes, because going to the gym on my own would be just much more boring, and so I like going and interacting with the others and, we just, laugh at each other the with the pain and, it's just it's it that's it it's about experiences in life as well. It's about creating those experiences, um, and being kind to yourself. Being kind to yourself, not taking yourself too seriously, but at the same time, showing up for yourself as well. Um, so yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, love that idea. And breaking it down into chip away at it, chip away at it. We spend more of our time in the journey, don't we? We're often working towards something, and then when we get there, we're working towards something else. So it's about enjoying the journey. It's about enjoying the in between as much as you can, isn't it? Yeah, for sure. Looking ahead then, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
It's a good question, because if you told me I'd be in this position 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But um, I think for me in the next 5 years, I would love to say that I'm now a very confident coach. I'm got clear understanding of who I really am as a person, and what I can give and offer to people. And I think in the next 5 years, in terms of like a career path, I would love to say that I'm now got a well established coaching brand and coaching name that people know who I am. And if that means going wider afield and expanding myself to different locations and different environments, that's where I want to be. I never really want to. I want to always try and push myself outside that comfort zone. So expanding, I'd love to move abroad one day, and see what that's all about. So yeah, next 5 years to build an established coaching brand and have absolute clarity over, what I stand for and who I am.
Love that. That's brilliant, lots of hopes for the future, yeah, and, with your attitude, it wouldn't surprise me, where you could end up. The possibilities are huge for sure.
Thank you.
So, if you could go back and give your younger self some advice, what would you say?
Number one advice, and I think it's always good for any stage of life you're in, ask more questions. I think especially a younger age, you can be a little bit more unaware and a little bit more conscious of almost standing out and asking more questions, whether you think they're silly or not. But if you've got something you're not sure about, or if you're, wanting to know a little bit more, and you feel a little bit afraid of what people might think about your question or anything like that, that's just something that I think, you want to develop, you want to understand more, you want to educate yourself more. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, do it for yourself, ask more questions, speak to more people, and create more relationships, deeper relationships as well at times with people, not just on a surface level, actually finding out who they are and what their journey's been. Yeah, I'd definitely say, as my younger self, not shy away from asking questions and not feel so conscious of what others are thinking, and just do what I want to do. And that's something that over the last few years, especially, like, I'm trying, pretty similar to what you are, trying to say no to more things, and not trying to please others at the expense of your own health and your own happiness almost. So I'd definitely say, number one, ask more questions, learn from people who are in places you want to be at, and then definitely just to not worry too much about what others are thinking, and just get what you want from things and prioritize yourself.
Absolutely. Love that. That's great advice. It really is. And, it's, when we do that, we're stronger to support others. It's not a selfish thing because it just means that we're including ourselves in that, we're often more kind to others than we are ourselves, really, and we expect more of ourselves than we do of others, and that's where we start to get burnout and bogged down and stuck in ruts and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, that is perfect advice, and actually, through my experience in working with people in therapy, that's one of the main things that comes up for people, that they spend too much time focusing on others and get and they it makes them vulnerable to depression actually and anxiety and different things, when they're not kind of connected with themselves in that way. So, great advice. I will second that. Love that one.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Finally, what's the one message that you'd love listeners to take away from your story?
So I made sure I got this note down on my phone. If you're truly wanting to do something and you've got a goal and you're working towards something, do it 100% and don't have any regrets of it. I think for me, when firstly when I moved out of home, and secondly obviously when I had the injury, the thing that I got told was, at the end of this journey, no matter what happens in this journey, whether you make it professional, whether you don't make it professional, don't be at the end of the journey and have regrets, because that is a thing that will kill you. Knowing you could have done more. So whether that is simply in the gym, whether that is on your own journey, whether that is at work, with relationships, whatever it is, whenever that phase ends, whenever that journey closes, at the end of it, give it everything, because you don't want to have regrets. So commit 100%, do everything you can, and at the end of it, whatever happens, you know that you can be truly happy with absolutely everything you did, because you gave as much as you could and you gave it 100%. So that would be my message for listeners to take away.
Love that. That speaks again to, building our sense of self and being happy with who we are.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing there is you're gaining that evidence of I've done the best I can with the resources and the knowledge with where I'm at. I did the best with what I knew at the time. And I think that is such good advice, because when we do beat ourselves up about stuff, again, it can take us down, the wrong road, really. What I love about today and about your story and what's occurred to me is that from an awful experience, what you've done is you've learned as much as you can from that. And what you're doing now is you're living your life based on that experience, based on that learning. You're using that to help others now. I know from my personal experience that that's what I do now as well. From my past experiences, it makes me a good therapist. It and it's the reason why I'm a therapist, my past experiences. And when I see that in someone else, that to me is the secret to life. When you're in your lane, you're really in your lane, you're really aligned with your values and who you are. It's truly inspirational.
Yeah. If you can understand what your values are, and you can use your past experiences. So for me, I don't know who I would have become if those things didn't happen to me. Like them past experiences have massively shaped my mindset and how I come across with people and how I help people as well. So, whether it's something that completely breaks you down, that in the future that, it could be a massive learning curve. So like you said, values and what you stand for, if you can truly align yourself with those, you are going to be very fulfilled and very happy every single day of your life.
Wow, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. It has been truly inspirational. You've touched my heartstrings today, and I'm sure that you'll touch the hearts of our listeners, you know. I so appreciate you coming and sharing this story with us. It's brilliant. I've just so enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. I've got no worries about you going forward. I think that your attitude and your resilience, the things that you do on a daily basis to keep you strong, will continue to carry you through. Yeah, just thank you.
Not a problem. Like I said, thank you very much for having me. And, you know, I've not had this opportunity to speak about my whole journey before, and giving me that platform to do so has been very, very opening to myself. So, thank you very much for the opportunity.
My pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for being with us at Happiness, Health, Relationships podcast. Our small daily habits are your future self. I'm loving your feedback and feeling connected to you guys. It really feels like we're on this journey together and creating something beautiful. If today's episode resonated, share it with someone you love, follow the show, leave a quick review. It helps more people find this message of more fulfilled, healthy living. It'll also help us keep the podcast going. Want a little extra between episodes for simple weekly tips and habit challenges and behind the scenes updates? Come and hang out on Instagram at Hennessy-Thompson or TikTok at AngelineHT. You'll find the show notes below. The links are down there. I'd love to connect with you there. Remember, your future isn't shaped by big leaps. It's built in the quiet, consistent choices you make every day. And we want to be with you through these choices. So keep showing up for yourself, one day, one choice, one habit at a time. And I'll see you on the next episode.